Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Who Gives a Dram. I'm your host, Connor. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate that you're here, and I'm also happy to be here on another wonderful week, the first week of June. Can you believe it? Another month has gone by, almost just about halfway through 2025. Has it gone the way I expected it to go? Absolutely not. Does it ever? Absolutely not. But I'm thankful to be here today. I'm thankful to have a nice glass of whiskey in front of me. And I'm thankful for each and every one of you that watch and listen to the podcast. Before we get into this episode, of which we've got some major stories to touch on that have just been announced either today or yesterday, the day of this recording. Before we jump into all of the whiskey talk, I just want to mention that make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. I changed the YouTube channel to Connor_whiskey, just like all my other handles, to keep it simple. If you want to listen to full-length podcasts, there's a Who Gives a Dram playlist right there. It's where I also upload my whiskey vlogs and every other piece of content that I make as well. So go on to YouTube. Connor_whiskey is my handle there. Make sure you subscribe so you can watch the podcast. My Instagram handle, Connor_whiskey. Make sure you're following me there. And also, most importantly, McTavish Spirits. Go to McTavishSpirits.com. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. Pick up a bottle of the War Chief while you're there for $74.99, as well as follow us on all social medias, McTavish Spirits. As you probably saw last week, we officially announced the Rhode Island distribution plan that has been months and months of planning. So I was really happy that we were able to finally announce that last week. And people loved it. So that's going to be the new challenge for the month of June. It's a busy month. I'll be in Alaska at the end of this month with Graham, so we're going to plan for that. Going to plan to record a bunch of content out there. And I've got the No Fame Games this month where I'll be attending June 21st, so somewhere around there. I'll be attending. I'll be in the VIP tent pouring some McTavish Spirits for some individuals. And I've got a wedding this month. We're moving my sister in the next few days. I'll probably record some content there. We're moving her up to New Hampshire. So one of my favorite. If you know me, you know I love New Hampshire. So really looking forward to that. And just a busy month of June coming up, and lots of whiskey news to start the month. Between yesterday and today, two huge news stories that I'm excited to talk about here on the podcast. One thing that I want to hit on, first and foremost, I want to say that the whiskey that we're going to drink today is High and Wicked. They sent this to me at no cost, just to review on the podcast, of which I'm very thankful. So thank you. And I wish we talked about this bottle, High and Wicked, straight bourbon whiskey, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, during the transparency episode that I had a few weeks ago, because talk about a transparent label. I don't know much about the brand. I've never had the whiskey before. I let my brother Kale and Aiden, my sister's boyfriend, open the bottle, which I think is good because it's let it kind of air out a little bit. And my first reaction will be today on this episode. And the topic for today, which we'll get into one of the big news stories that has happened in the whiskey world recently, is the 3-tier system. And I'm going to give my opinions on, from the supplier side, how that operates. I have an article pulled up that will kind of go into exactly what the 3-tier system is. I'll give my opinions, and that's going to lead into one of the biggest news stories, I think, of the year so far when it comes to distribution and whiskey business, and gives you an idea of the trajectory of the business and of itself on the distribution side. But before all of that, I don't really talk movies anymore. I don't really talk MMA anymore. I'm still heavily involved in both. UFC, not as much. I've just been so busy, and it's $80 a pay-per-view, and I'm a broke entrepreneur, so it doesn't really make sense for me to pay for the pay-per-views. Anyways, I I did do a rewatch of Stranger Things season 4. And I will say that I'm not going to go all into it because they did drop the teaser trailer for season 5, and I will say this. I will say that the quote unquote like bully, like the jock kid, I don't know his name, but he was like the basketball star in the season, and he was friends with uh why Caleb McLaughlin is his real name. Why am I forgetting his name on the show? Anyway, yeah, he was like the jock character, and he was made out to be this like villain. And I wrote down like in my notes just randomly, I was like, why is this kid the villain? Why is this kid the like one of like the side villains outside of Vecna in this season of Stranger Things? Because if I were in the kid's shoes and my girlfriend was brutally murdered and out of nowhere, who was supposedly a good girl, and she happened to be in the trailer of some known weirdo in school, and then I saw one of my friends get lifted up into the air, mangled up by Vecna, and just drop dead, I would also think there's some devil voodoo magic happening, and I don't think that kid's actually the like. I agree with his stance, and I would want answers too, and I'd be willing to forcefully get those answers as well. I don't understand why they made him out to be so much of a bad guy in the season, and maybe I'm just interpreting it wrong. I don't know. But I literally just got done watching season 4 this morning as I was working on some McTavish stuff, getting some presentations made for some general sales meetings that we'll be attending in the next few weeks. I'll be going up to the McLaughlin and Morand HQ at the end of this month to speak with the sales team up there and basically tell them this is what McTavish Spirits is and this is how you sell it. And I'll be doing the same thing in Kentucky for Kentucky Eagle in the beginning of July when I get back from Alaska. And we've surprisingly never done a GSM with Kentucky Eagle before, so it'll be a bunch of people that I've already like done work with, but it'll be kind of more of an official presentation as to here's what sets McTavish Spirits apart from other brands. And it's easy for me to talk about it, but I can completely understand why it might be difficult for a sales rep to speak about, well, McTavish Spirits is different than X brand, because I can see where that confusion might come up. So that being said, I'm going to be out today. I've been working on fixing up some of our presentations to reflect accurate numbers and current, awards and things of that nature. So I've also been trying to lock down Alaska and make sure that everything is 100% locked in as soon as possible, because I don't want to be traveling to Alaska with doubts in my mind. That's the last thing that I want and need. So I'm trying to buckle that up as soon as possible, which is, again, easier said than done. There's a lot that goes into a weekend of being the official bourbon of the Alaska Highland Games, of which we're very grateful. Wow, we're already 9 minutes in. All right, well, anyways, this first article that we're going to talk about involves a very good friend of mine. So I might be a little biased, but I'm also very happy for him. And I've known about this for a little bit now. And as a friend of Bill's, I swore myself to secrecy, obviously. Wasn't going to tell anybody. But it was cool to get a little bit of behind-the-scenes knowledge a few weeks ago when I saw Bill in at Whiskey Thief Distillery Company in Kentucky. But Kentucky's famed Willett Distillery breaks tradition with its first long-term brand collaboration with Binder Stash. I'm going to put my iPad right here to read right off of it. This collaboration opens the door to new single barrel and small batch releases backed by Willett's heritage. Um, Kentucky's iconic family-owned Willett Distillery has announced its first partnership with another whiskey company, Bardstown, Kentucky's Binder's Stash. In the past, the distillery has engaged in a few one-off partnerships, but this is the first ongoing long-term partnership with another bourbon brand. It appears to be a boon for both Willett fans and fans of Binder's Stash, an emerging star among collectible whiskeys. The partnership gives Binder's Stash exclusive access to Willett's highly sought-after inventory, including experimental mash bills and limited barrels, advancing the brand founder Bill Binder's vision to create deeply expressive, high-end whiskeys with unmatched provenance. The first releases will likely appear this summer, quote, with some pretty cool single barrels. They've agreed to sell us, Bill says, they've agreed to sell us some of their really special aged whiskeys, which I find kind of hard to believe myself. A few quotes. Basically just talks about how the brand, how this even came about with the Willett master distiller essentially offering Bill to do the wax part of the Binder's Stash bottles. Then the article reads, as a result, Binder's Stash will now benefit from Willett's state-of-the-art bottling operations and extensive distribution platform across domestic and global markets. Whoa. The first single barrel Binder's releases using aged Willett spirit will appear this summer. This one-of-a-kind partnership with Willett makes a turning point for Binder's Stash, says Bill Binder. We've built a reputation by sourcing and releasing some of the most distinctive American whiskeys in the country, but Willett represents a different level, generational expertise, uncompromising quality, and a legacy that elevates everything it touches. Together, we're setting a new bar for what American whiskey can be. And this news made me smile. Bill is one of those guys in the whiskey industry that I consider a true friend of mine. And I've had the privilege of knowing him for several years now. And I've seen him and hung out with him on several different occasions. Most recently, the last time I was in Kentucky about 6 or 7 weeks ago, Bill got dinner with me and Graham and Ivy when we were in Kentucky for the Make It McTavish tour, which was awesome to see him and to have him meet Graham, of all people, who they kind of look alike. You know, honestly, they are very similar, bald and bearded. So, and Bill and I have spoken about kind of maybe things that, you know, our two companies can do together in the future, but you know, this is just a testament to, you know, Bill is one of those guys that anytime you see him, he puts you in a good mood. He makes you laugh. He makes you just live in the moment. And that's why I love Bill, because sometimes I'm not good at that. My head will go in a million different directions. And I know Bill's does as well. Trust me, he's an entrepreneur just like me, just like a lot of us. But the way he's able to nonchalantly make the situation more relaxing and fun and make you laugh and, you know, talk whiskey and just tell his stories is just, it's honestly a skill. And it's one of the many reasons why I love Bill. And there's nobody more deserving of this partnership than Bill, just with the amount of work that he himself has put into his brand and the reputation that Binder's Stash has in the whiskey community as the highest quality single barrel releases that you can possibly imagine are going into Binder's Stash. And it's just insane to me that for the first time in almost damn near a century, Willett is opening their doors to another bourbon brand, and it's not one of the big boys. It's not a huge NDP. It's Binder. It's Binder's Stash, and it's Bill Binder, and it's a testament to his tenacity and his skill and his knowledge of whiskey and his ability to build a brand. And I texted him this morning. I commend him for just having the guts to do this, because starting brands takes guts, and nobody knows it more than Bill. We talk about it quite often because I'm in the same position, and I love to see good people win. That's basically what it is. I love to see good people win. And I've read this article on foodandwine.com this morning, saw it posted by a bunch of different people, and just thought, you know what? Hell yeah. Even though I already knew it was going to happen, just hell yeah. Hell effing yeah. So shout out to Bill. Great guy. Fantastic human being. I love him. And well-deserving of this. Absolutely. I mean, benefiting from Willett's operation and distribution network, that's ginormous. That is so huge for Bill and his team. I'm just so happy for him. I'm so happy for him. So deserving of this. It's not like it's the conversations that we've had about this business and our plans and everything is just, I know how, I have a feeling I kind of know how Bill thinks, and this is something that's just going to take Binder Stash to that huge next level. Massive. I won't be surprised if they're one of the biggest single barrel curators in the country in the next half a decade. So, Bill, shout out to you, my friend. I love you. You're a really good friend, and I appreciate all the help that you give me with McTavish and Ivy as well. And I look forward to following along with the journey. So, next, what I want to talk about, I just saw this article quickly on Forbes.com, 5 must-try bourbons from 2025's San Francisco Spirits Competition. We didn't enter 2025. We chose to enter the Ascot competitions, where we, of course, won 2 platinum medals for the War Chief and Legacy Series 1. Very, very proud of that. But I don't know who won San Francisco. I saw a lot of brands and friends of, some of my friends post about their winnings. But this says 5 must-try bourbons from the competition that were top picks. All 5 are finalists for the coveted prize of America's Best Bourbon, which I didn't know San Francisco even did that award. Maybe it's best in show. I don't know. But let's get into the article. 5 bourbons were crowned America's Best Bourbons at the 2025 San Francisco World Spirits Competition. All 5 bourbons are finalists for the top prize. Yep. Below are brief backgrounds and tasting notes on the 5 finalists in the straight bourbon category. So I don't know what these are. I've never seen them. I've never read this article. I just wanted to kind of talk about it on the podcast real quick before we get into the next article, which is a doozy. Old Granddad's 16-year-old straight bourbon. That was entered? Really? Interesting. Legendary high rye bourbon, that's for sure. Beautifully balancing complexity of extended aging with sweetness and vibrant rye spice. I mean, Old Granddad, staple. Old Granddad bonded, come on. I mean, one of the best bonded bourbons out there, if not the best, in terms of price, legacy. The next one, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C924. And we talked about Elijah Craig last week on the article from Whiskey Advocate about new releases, which was B525. So this was September's release, which clocked in at 64.5% ABV and a $75 MSRP, which is just crazy. It's the same price as the War Chief. This bourbon is Heaven Hill's September 2024 release in its acclaimed barrel proof series, bottled at cask strength, an incredible 133.6 proof. That almost is teetering on the line of too much. And aged for 12 years. C924 is a powerhouse of flavor, ideal for enthusiasts who appreciate robust, intensely oaky bourbon. And I will say, and I've said it for years while I've been doing this podcast, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, the consistency of the releases, the age of the whiskeys, whether they're age-dated or not, the proof points. I mean, I like the lower proof points. Like, I know, like, the 2023s were kind of lower, if I remember correctly. I kind of like that 115, 120, which is a little bit, like 120 is normal, 115, that is kind of an anomaly, I think. But some of the better ones I've had were I think like 118, one of like maybe B523 or C923 or something, like maybe one of those releases in 22 or 23 were fairly low proof. It was consistently, almost the entire year, had 3 offerings under 125 proof, and sometimes those are the better ones. However, B520, one of my favorite all-time pours, is right around that 130 proof point as well. So, I mean, it just depends, but Elijah Craig is just one of the best brands to begin with ever. So this barrel proof, it doesn't surprise me that's a finalist for best straight bourbon, as it is for the price point. If we're talking about price point as well, it's $75 for a 12-year. I mean, just it's really tough to beat that. Really, really tough to beat that. Eagle Rare 17. Okay, so we're just talking about any type of bourbon here. Eagle Rare 17-year-old straight bourbon, 50.5% ABV for $150. Good luck finding it for that. Eagle Rare is one of the crown jewels of the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, distilled from Buffalo Trace's low rye mash bill number 1, just like Buffalo Trace, and bottled at 101 proof. It showcases extraordinary balance, complexity, and depth after 17 years of aging. 17 years. Dang. This masterful, polished bourbon, that bourbon can almost vote. Crazy. This masterful, polished bourbon exemplifies the refinement possible with extended aging under optimal conditions, which is true. Funny story about Eagle Rare 17. So, oh man, me and my brother, and it might have been just us two. Maybe Gracie was there, but we were getting a dinner or a snack in Mystic right before a movie. And I thought it was Oppenheimer, but maybe it wasn't. It could have been another movie that maybe Kale came to see. But anyways, we were at a place called the Jealous Monk in Mystic, Connecticut, right by the Mystic movie theater. And I saw I'm trying to remember how the story goes. I saw a bottle on the top shelf, and it was Eagle Rare. I'm trying to remember if I knew it was Eagle Rare 17 at the beginning. I wish Kale was here so I could ask him, but more or less, we saw Eagle Rare on the menu. Oh, no, I remember it now. Okay. It's going to make you laugh. I saw Eagle Rare on the menu, and it just said Eagle Rare, mind you. It didn't say anything else. It just said Eagle Rare. And it was for like $45. And me and Carol looking at each other like, I love Eagle Rare, but that's the price of a bottle, damn near. I'm not paying that for a 2-ounce pour in Mystic. Like, absolutely not. So, ended up getting something else. But then I remember looking behind the counter from where we were sitting and seeing a bottle of what I thought was Eagle Rare 17. And I'm like, that's cool. And there's not a lot left. And then I was looking through the rest of the back bar as much as I could see, and I did not see an Eagle Rare bottle. And I looked at Kale, and I was like, do you think? And he's like, no. I'm like, I think that $45 price is for the Eagle Rare 17. And he was like, you think so? And I'm like, I'm going to ask. So I get the waitress over. I'm like, so this Eagle Rare right here, is this for the standard or is this for the 17-year you have at the top shelf? And without hesitancy, she goes, oh, that's for the 17-year. I'm like, come again? Oh, yeah, that's for the 17-year. And there was exactly 2 pours left. I think she gave us a little bit extra in each because we killed the bottle. And I was like, Kale, I don't care if I have to buy this for you. We're going to finish that bottle right now before we see this movie. And we did, and it was glorious. I have a picture of it on my phone somewhere, and it was like $40 or so for a strong 2-ounce pour of Eagle Rare 17. Totally worth it. One of my favorite, like, whiskey, going out and finding whiskey for a good price moments outside of Kentucky, mind you. Anyways, I guess this is one of the top 5 for the straight bourbon category San Francisco Spirits Awards. And, yeah, I like Eagle Rare a lot. Eagle Rare 17 is very tasty. I remember liking it quite a bit, and I like the regular Eagle Rare, one of my favorites. The next one is the World Whiskey Society Doc Holliday 15-year-old straight bourbon for $3.99. Interesting. This luxurious bourbon is built for slow savoring and a deep appreciation of mature whiskey character. The expression is a rare barrel sourced by the World Whiskey Society and bottled under the legendary gunfighter's name. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. It was distilled in Kentucky, aged 15 years, and bottled at a massive 136.2 proof. That is massive. The source of the whiskey is not disclosed. Don't love that. The judging panel described the bourbon as showcasing aromas of toasted bread, followed by flavors of vanilla and snickerdoodle, and a long nutmeg-laced finish for $400. And I know the World Whiskey Society bottles are beautiful, so a lot of that price probably goes into the glass itself, but dang. 68.1%, dang. I don't know if I could drink that. I'm getting kind of old, so I would look at that. I'd have a sip of it, and then I'd put the rest on ice, probably, is what I would do in my old age. And then the last one is something I've never heard of. Ray's Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 45% ABV at 35. What? 35. This was one of the top 5. This whiskey is a small batch bottling from Ray's Whiskey Company. The expression is slated for release later this year. This whiskey is an easy drinking bourbon, well suited for casual sipping or mixing into cocktails. It makes a perfect aperitif. I love that word. One of my favorite words in the world. An aperitif. At a proposed retail list price of $35, whoa, it will be a great value among the top bourbons of this year's competition. I want to see a picture of that. Is there a picture? So, sample not for resale. Oh, so they just sent it. This is new. I might be behind because this article is from like the beginning of May, but Ray's Whiskey Company. I got to look into that real quick. Let me put it up here in the interwebs. Ray's Whiskey Company? Am I missing something? There's Ray's Wine and Spirits. Great friend of McTavish Spirits, by the way, out there in Milwaukee. But that's not Ray's Bourbon Whiskey Company. What the hell is Ray's? What? What is this? Am I just missing something? It seems like it's from a company that's not even out yet. Whoa. Interesting. For $35. No age statement, it doesn't look like. Unless let me look in the bottle real quick. Yeah. It just has like a straight up normal. Like I'll see if you can see it on my iPad here. See? If you're on YouTube, you're not gonna understand what it is, but I hope you could see that picture because it just says Ray's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Super interesting. I really want to try that for $35. That really tickles my fancy, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so those are the 5 best straight bourbon whiskeys according to the San Francisco World Spirits Competition this year. And I mean, I guess I can understand. That old granddad's crazy. The Doc Holliday bottle is crazy. Oh, it's not one of the World Whiskey bottles. It's one of those that actually has Doc Holliday's picture on it for $400. I'm your Huckleberry. Hell yeah, you are. Man, Tombstone's one of the greatest movies of all time, and Doc Holliday is not only one of the greatest characters of all time, up there with Tommy Shelby, but also his portrayal by Val Kilmer, portraying him with tuberculosis like in real life, is just, A+. A+. So, we're going to get into the topic of today's episode, and then we're going to get into the whiskey review as well. Again, thank you to High and Wicked for sending me this bottle at no cost. I really appreciate it. They sent me 2, so this one will be my drinking one. I'll probably have a little bit more this evening, even though I need a new show to watch now that I'm done with Stranger Things. But we're going to talk about the 3-tier system today, what it is, kind of understanding it a little bit, and then this bombshell of an article came out today. I heard rumblings of it yesterday, but the article came out today. Jobs at risk as RNDC exits California. And if you're just a consumer of whiskey, you probably understand the weight of that. But as a supplier, I look at that and I'm like, oh my God, something is happening. And we're going to get into it. But first, let's talk about High and Wicked. So High and Wicked, I'm on their website right now. Let's go to the story section. When they cut you out a bucker, why the boys all gathers round. Oh, it's a High and Wicked Classic Rhymes by Bruce Kiskaden. What is going on? Where's the story? Our story. High and Wicked is an importer and specialty bottler of exceptional whiskeys. So an NDP, okay. It was I didn't mean to say it like that. I'm an NDP, but yeah, basically what it means. It was founded in 2019 by two former Brown-Forman senior executives, W.L. Lyons Brown III, what a name, and Kevin E. Sachs. Brown and Sachs worked together in the international division in the 90s and were instrumental in building Jack Daniel's and Southern Comfort in Europe and Asia. Very cool. The company features 5-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon and Kentucky Straight Rye available year-round. It will also offer unique small production expressions of each annually, including cask-strength, single-barrel, and double wood finishes. Awesome. Some will carry greater age as the brands evolve. Awesome. High and Wicked also offers limited releases of American Bourbon, single malt Irish whiskey, and single grain Irish whiskey. These singular limited releases feature single barrels and expert double wood finishes that add layers of complexity to already superb distillates. There will be 1 to 2 of these annually, approximating 1,000 9-liter cases. I mean, not a huge run, but also not a small run. So I guess the inspiration is a poem, I think. Is there... Anyways, I went to the expressions because they sent me the straight bourbon whiskey, and I want to talk about this. And I love the bottle, by the way, and I love, like I said before, the transparency aspect of it. It gives you the where it's aged, the age statement, aged for 5 years. It gives you the mash bill, which is 51 corn, 39 rye, 10 malted barley. It says along the label here, where to start? Stills, all copper column and doubler, okay? Aged in new white oak barrels, medium toast, number 4 char, non-chill filtered, some cloudiness may occur. And I like that. The only thing I don't like on this, it just says distilled in Kentucky, so it doesn't tell you exactly where the whiskey's coming from. And I think as an NDP, that should be the case on a bottle. If you're taking someone else's distillate, I think the least you can do is tell people whose distillate it is. I would assume this is most likely Bardstown, but I could be wrong. It could be Barton, depending on the palate here. Bottled by High and Wicked in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. Kentucky-grown corn and rye. That's all just fanciful stuff. You don't need to put that on the label, Kentucky-grown corn and rye. If it's Kentucky distillate, then you know it's Kentucky-grown. For the most part. But I do like the bottle. I like how it, signifies high rye bourbon. I think this is easy for somebody who's not really into whiskey. They can look at this and kind of get all the information basically that they need. I just wish they put, as a whiskey nerd, where it's actually distilled from. Here on the website, we got the age, origin, Kentucky, still type, 36-inch Vendome, copper column still with doubler, which is normal. 104 proof, like we talked about. High rye, sweet mash bourbon. And then they say it's got leather, pipe tobacco, and rich oak notes with baked fruits, like blackberries and a Dutch berry pie, caramelized orange peel and spices. Rich dark cocoa and cherries develop as the glass opens with complex vanilla, butterscotch. It's going to go into rich and full-flavored, nicely structured tannins with a creamy and lightly spiced mouthfeel. Okay, caramelized berries, interesting, and baked fruit pie notes give way to baking spice and orange notes, but an overall dry and bold character. I'll tell you if it's dry, because I need water right now. My mouth is already dry. Let's go into the nose, and then we're going to get into the article. Oh. Oh. All right, and I've obviously I did not open this bottle myself. I let my brother and Aiden drink some on my behalf. This is my first time even smelling it, and I get a very much maple on here, like a maple. I'm getting some. This isn't. This is nice. I'm getting a mapley. Did they say the caramelized berries on the nose? Because I actually agree with that, which is strange. Baked fruit notes. No, I get a lot of maple on this, which they don't put on here, but pipe tobacco is kind of similar. Yeah, this is very maple syrup tobacco forward with a little bit of fruit on the back end there. Cinnamon, almost like a cinnamon Applejack kind of. Remember those cereals with the cinnamon? Now they took that off, but kind of reminds me of that. Very beautiful nose on this. This is very nice. This is right up my alley, by the way. I love pipe tobacco. I love that kind of that darker sweetness of a pipe tobacco. Almost a stinginess on it, as well as the maple. I love that. And then the darker sugars, I'm always a fan of that. You can tell that this is not technically high corn. It's not in like the 70s. You can tell that this is very much a low corn mash bill, which I can find a lot of positives in. Obviously, the War Chief, my bourbon, is high corn, but I'm not here to compare the two. Very nice nose. I'm getting maple, applejack, cinnamon applejack notes with some of those kind of darker berries on there, and then a lot of kind of just like burnt caramel on the end. This is going to be good. I think I'm going to be happy with this. I just wish I knew where the goddamn whiskey came from. Anyways, we're going to go into what exactly the 3-tier system is real quick. And this is an article on brendiamogroup.com, which is a big whiskey company, basically. So I'm going to quickly go through it together so we understand it, okay? Even though I live it every day, I want you guys to understand it, not from my stupid brain. The 3-tier system has its beginnings in the Prohibition era from 1919 until 1933. The 18th Amendment declared the manufacture, sale, and transportation of liquor was illegal. After Prohibition ended in 1933, following the ratification of the 21st Amendment, the federal government granted states the autonomy to establish their own regulations and policies regarding the repeal of Prohibition. This encompassed overseeing alcohol imports, distribution within state borders, and sales of alcohol. As a result, states started to explore ways to oversee and regulate the alcohol industry, along with implementing measures to collect taxes. Mindful of the organized crime syndicate and gangsters who had largely monopolized alcohol operations during Prohibition, states created the 3-tier system to prevent the control of alcohol supply chains by any one individual entity. In a few words, the 3-tier system prevented any one alcohol entity from operating in more than one, quote, tier. You might be asking, Connor, what are the tiers? I'm going to tell you. To push back on excessive sales and consumption, the 3-tier system separated the alcohol business into 3 categories: production, which is what I'm in, distribution, which is RNDC, and retail, which is any type of store, bar, restaurant, hotel, etc. Eliminating the possibility of tied houses increased public safety, led to specific regulations for each tier, and introduced separate tax requirements for manufacturers, importers, and retailers. Today, alcohol must make its way through the 3-tier system, with the National Alcohol Beverage Control System resembles, quote, an hourglass-like structure. Alcohol is produced by manufacturers, McTavish Spirits or High and Wicked, is tracked and taxed through wholesalers, and finally is received by retailers who then sell it to customers. And the government takes a portion of the pie in each scenario. Tax, margin. I could go on about this for hours. If you're looking to break into the American alcoholic beverage industry or source your liquid from another state, it's important to note that it's not as straightforward as making a U.S. purchase. With 50 different marketplaces, each with their own set of laws, navigating the industry can be quite complex. And that's the end of the article there. But essentially, the 3-tier system, again, in layman's terms, which is how I talk and think, it doesn't allow anyone to monopolize, every single aspect of alcohol production and distribution and sales to then undercut the pricing of brands by lowering production costs by owning everything in-house. So like you can't McTavish Spirits cannot create McTavish Spirits distribution, which then distributes in all 50 states and then sells to a McTavish Spirits bar and restaurant. Like there's just for a cent. You know what I mean? Like that can't happen. I need to sell to my distributor, and there's different kinds of distributors, which gets us into this RNDC thing. There's the big boys that operate in almost every single state, like RNDC, like Southern Glaciers, like Breakthrough, like Johnson Brothers. A lot of different distributors have presences in multiple states. And then there's the small guys. Those are the people that I typically like to work with, that are specific to the state that they operate in, don't expand out, and although the resources might not be as much as an RNDC, I just think there's a more there's a better connection there, and I'm speaking just on my general experience. I know that's not true for everybody, but I love my partners in every single state. That being said, we are partnered with RNDC in Alaska, which is a little bit different, but they've been great to us. And Mike over there, I believe his title is VP of Sales or something like that, who's my contact, has been instrumental in setting us up for the Alaska Highland Games by getting more product over there. And it's kind of a pain in the butt because you got to fly it all the way out to Seattle, then it goes on a boat over to Anchorage, and there's a lot that goes into it, but the team over there is always on top of it. So definitely appreciative of that. And then it gets different again when you go into control states, which is a whole different topic that we can talk about later. McTavish Spirits is not distributed in a control state as of yet. However, if we land New Hampshire, because I love New Hampshire so much, that could change. But this is an article on the spirits business that I read this morning. The Republic National Distributing Company, RNDC, will close shop out west after losing major producers Tito's and Brown-Forman in California. I gotta take a sip of whiskey before I read this. I get more of the fruit on the nose now, letting it sit for a bit in the glass after adjusting my nose to it initially. Oh no, that maples. This is a great nose. High and Wicked, great smelling bourbon. Let's see if it tastes good, because at the end of the day, it's all that matters. Cheers. High and Wicked Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. First sip always goes down. Interesting. It definitely sits with you. Doesn't coat the mouth a lot. So, given the dry mouthfeel. I get a lot of the cinnamon on there. You can tell it is 100% high rye because it's not proof spice kicking you. It's cinnamon spice. I do get more of like a baked fruit, like an apple pie. I think they say that on there. Cinnamon is kind of taking over the palate right now. Still sitting with me. I haven't had whiskey in a few days, so I feel like I record this podcast, I drink whiskey, and then for the most part, I don't drink whiskey unless I'm working the rest of the week, unless I go out with like my brother or sister or something. But very tasty. Let's give it one more sip before we get into the article here. It's definitely got a bit of a ethanol-ness to it, which I don't love. The nose, I feel like the nose is trying to come out on the palate. Like, it wants to come out. There's a little hint of that maple sweetness that I loved on the nose that's not coming through on the palate. But it's a nice cinnamon. It's a nice spice. Obviously, it's a very high rye bourbon. I got to give that a second to chill. I'm not sure if I love it right this second, but let's get into the article. RNDC will close its California operations effective 1 September. So, not that far away, all things considered. Additional information will be provided on the state of the business and next steps, but interim CEO Bob Hendrickson has issued a preliminary statement following a company town hall meeting held yesterday, June 2nd. We've made the difficult business decision to withdraw from California, which affects many of the roles in the state. We are complying with all regulatory obligations and are committed to handling every transition thoughtfully and smoothly and ensuring everyone is treated fairly and respectfully. We are grateful for the support of these employees and will do our best to support them during this time. In late February, after the company lost Tito's and Brown-Forman to Reyes Beverage Group in California, and I'm pretty sure they lost Sazerac as well earlier. The state is one of the single largest markets for spirits in the U.S., naturally. Last week, Brown-Forman announced it would be changing distribution partners in additional states. The firm has opted for Johnson Brothers in Indiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Texas, and Southern Glazers in Louisiana and New York. Breakthrough Beverage is now Brown-Forman's largest national distributor partner, covering 14 key markets. In May, RNDC announced it was making a, quote, strategic reinvestment in its workforce with a focus on Texas, creating more than 100 new roles in the state. At the time, it described Texas as one of its most, quote, cornerstone markets. It is not yet known how many roles will be impacted in California. So, my thoughts on that while I finish this glass of whiskey, and then we'll talk about the rest of my opinion on it, is I'll give my unfiltered opinion here. I think it sucks. I feel for the brands that are like McTavish Spirits that maybe thought that they had struck gold by, oh, we got the contract with RNDC, and now we're set. We're good. We don't have to worry about Cali anymore. We got the RNDC team, and they're going to take care of us, and they got a bunch of money, and they're the second biggest distributor in the country. I feel bad for the players that are going to be affected in terms of the suppliers here. Because at the end of the day, RNDC will be fine. At the end of the day, the retailers will be fine. They'll just buy from someone else. It's the suppliers that I feel for here. Because I can only imagine how tough it's going to be to try to find somebody else. But I think for a lot of people, this will be a blessing in disguise. And there's no shade on RNDC here. Trust me. I work with RNDC in Alaska. They're great for McTavish Spirits. As of right now, they're awesome. No complaints. Takes a little bit of a long time to get back to me, but they're also 5 hours behind. So very happy to be with them. And I'm going to meet with them later this month, and I'm very excited for that. So that being said, I have always been a proponent of taking the way I think of it right now, and I'm relaying this back to McTavish Spirits, is distribution is in such a funky position right now where it's obvious that you can't rely on the legacy partners. You can't rely on those that have the biggest portfolio. It's just not the reality of the business right now. What companies need to look for are distributors that the number one priority for them is making real relationships, because the distributors have to balance two sides. They have to balance the suppliers and forming those relationships, and they also have to balance the retailers, which is a whole different ballgame. Trust me, I have met some retailers that are real POSs, if you know what I'm saying, but I've also met some that are some of my favorite people I've ever met, and that's not just liquor stores, but that's bars, restaurants, you name it. Anywhere that's offer on premise for alcohol sales, the distributor also manages that relationship too. They're the middleman. There's no other way to put it, and sometimes it sucks to be the middleman. But they make their money, and I have always felt that for us, for McTavish Spirits, it makes more sense to go out and look at each state by the particular distribution partner, knowing that we're a small brand and we're not going to get the limelight that a Brown-Forman whiskey does, or a Sazerac whiskey, or any other Heaven Hill, whatever it may be. But do we like the people that we're going to be dealing with? Are they honest? Are they at least trying to help us? Because at the end of the day, and I've talked about this in the past, it's on us to build our brand. It's on McTavish Spirits to build our brand. It's on High and Wicked to build their brand. It's not on the distributor to build this or to build McTavish or whoever else. What the distributor's job is, outside of being a vessel for us to get our whiskey into the state legally, is just getting in front of accounts. That's what I tell my distributors. That's the only ask is, even if you just give me a contact list, let me do the work. Or if you would like to do the work for me, great. I'm forever grateful. But I think it's gotten to a point in the whiskey business where suppliers just cannot rely on distributors anymore. I think this article is just a proof of concept of what I've been saying for several years, both on the podcast publicly, but also to my team privately and people that I advise or people that I talk to about this stuff, is the distributor isn't like it was 20 years ago, that a distributor made or broke a brand. Now, I think it's the opposite. I think the distributors really rely on us as suppliers to be able to blow up, and then they have the next big brand. Because the distributors have 1,000 brands they got to worry about across all sectors of alcohol. For example, McLaughlin and Morand, our new partners in Rhode Island, they have Anheuser-Busch. I mean, that every bar in America has an Anheuser-Busch product, whether it's a Bud Light or Budweiser or Michelob or whatever it may be. They sell it. Bud Light Seltzer, now that we're coming out to summertime, it's telling to the trajectory of the whiskey market, and especially the distributor side of things, based on this recent move from RNDC. And I read it, and it immediately made me think of when we tried to reach out to Southern Glaciers at the beginning of McTavish Spirits, and they didn't deny us, but they said not right now, but try again like on our next onboarding period or whatever. And I even viewed that kind of internally as a blessing in disguise, because we weren't ready for it. And a lot of these brands, you can't blame them. I have the opinion that you don't want to grow too quickly. You definitely want to kind of keep it low-key for a bit until you can afford to expand to a market like California. But those little California-based brands, that's who I think of in this situation. And I feel for them. I've been to California once. I went to Santa Monica. That's the first time I met Graham in person to do our first R&D of the War Chief. So I like California, but I just feel for them, man. It's so many people out there. It's one of the biggest economies in the world, and it's a state in the United States. So I would just say to any supplier that is caught up in this mess right now, is look for that distributor that will take you on. That doesn't necessarily have to be like Southern Glacier or any type of huge name. Maybe it is. Maybe that's just the relationship that you have, but focus on relationships. And I'm not saying RNDC didn't make good relationships. I know many people that work with RNDC in California that love them. I'm not saying they're bad people or anything. All I'm saying is this. Sometimes it doesn't behoove you to go with the big guys. Sometimes it behooves you to go with the smaller, more concise distributor. That's just my opinion as we take the last sip of this High and Wicked straight bourbon whiskey for the day. In the Who Gives a Dram Glencairn, by the way. Yeah, and so I don't love the palate as much as I love the nose. This is a great nose, and I'm not going to rate it or anything. I'm not going to do that anymore on the podcast, but I will say that there's definitely a lot of positives in this bourbon. But I just wish I wish the palate had as much flavor as the nose. I wish it's just overwhelming rye on the palate here. It's a little bit too spicy. The more I taste it, the more it's of like a peppery baking spice, and not in like the best way. Does it give you an MSRP here? I don't think it does. How much is this high and wicked straight bourbon? By Passion Spirits, I guess. Yes. Goes for $78. Yeesh. Oh, Breaking Bourbon. Here we go. Can trust those guys over there. They also reviewed the War Chief. They gave it a good score. $80. Oh yeah, $80 MSRP. Yeah. I mean, listen. The people that have founded this brand know what they're doing. I'm not trying to say that they don't know what they're doing. I just, for $80, I mean, the nose is great. The nose is fantastic. I really like it a lot. I just think the palate is a little bit of too much of like a white pepper or, black pepper, corn, rye spice. I don't really get a whole lot of anything that's totally inviting. Unfortunately, I wish I did. I really wish I did. But I do appreciate the 95%, transparency on the label. I wish I knew where it came from. I wonder if Breaking Bourbon does. Yeah, I just think that for $80 for an entry-level bourbon, it's a little steep. I don't know if I'd pay $80 for this. However, if you are a high rye bourbon fan, maybe you'd like the transition of a very peppery, baking spice forward bourbon that is completely different than the nose, because the nose doesn't give that off, but the palate does. Anyways, I do want to thank High and Wicked for sending this. I mean, I'm going to be checking out their other products because there is potential here. This just doesn't fit what I look for. And I'm not saying what I look for is the best. I'm sure there's people out here that swear by this brand. I love the bottle. And, there are some other whiskeys on their website that I'm definitely going to check out. And if I ever see it on a bar, I'm going to try it. I really am, because there is good things in this bottle for sure. 100%. So, but anyways, there's the High and Wicked straight bourbon whiskey kind of review, and also talking about the 3-tier system. And we're just about at an hour. I thought this was going to struggle to get to an hour, so we're here at an hour. So I do want to say thank you to everybody that's listening, and make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Connor_whiskey. It's different now, so go there, subscribe there. My Instagram is Connor_whiskey. TikTok, Connor_whiskey. McTavish Spirits, go follow us, McTavishSpirits.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Also follow us on all social medias at McTavish Spirits. We still have War Chief online. We got plenty of it. $74.99. We'll ship it right to your door. Legacy Series 1. It's still available. Go get it. Seelbach.com. Go get a bottle. I think I forgot how many I said. A few have sold. So let's just say there's a few dozen left. 3 dozen at the most. Go get a bottle, because once it's gone, and you're gonna want it. Summertime. Do you want a Scotch infused or a bourbon finished in Scotch cask? You'll want it on the rocks. I'll tell you that much. But trust me, you're gonna want to get it before it's gone. So thanks again for everybody for listening. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Yeah. I'm done. I got to go for another walk. I got to get my 10,000 steps in for the day. So back to work. Going to go for a walk. Going to get back to work for a bit. Thank you for joining me. This was a nice outlet here in the middle of the day today. And always remember, whiskey's the water of life. So let's start living.